All right. Well, welcome. So today we're going to talk through how can someone go from humble beginnings to traveling the world, spreading kindness and joy.
Hey everyone, I'm Scott,
And I'm Susan.
and welcome back to another Pragmatic Talk live, where it's a show where we go deep on the topics of marketing. Hello. Where we go deep on the topics of marketing and technology to really help you level up your marketing efforts. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different, but I know you're going to really enjoy it. Today, we actually have a very special guest, a former Harlem Globetrotter, Herb Flight Time Lang. Herb actually came from humble beginnings, growing up in Brinkley, Arkansas, and he was a Harlem Globetrotter that, again, traveled the world, spreading joy and happiness to everyone that he performed in front of, but it goes a lot deeper than that. He's also interacted with a lot of dignitaries, governors, presidents, popes, and plenty of other folks. In addition to all that, he's actually been on numerous television shows such as Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader?, The Amazing Race, and many, many more. And one of the things that I absolutely love about Herb is his motto is kindness is free. And I think you're going to really see that come through when we talk to him. So let's bring him in right now. So Herb, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you guys doing? Thank you guys for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, thanks for coming and fitting us into your schedule.
No worries.
So let's just jump right into it. So how does a boy from Brinkley, Arkansas travel the world, meet folks like the Pope and presidents and all this other stuff? Like, what's your story? Like, how did you go from kind of these humble beginnings to, who you are today?
Well, like you said, I'm from a small town in Arkansas called Brinkley, and I give all the credit in the world to the people of that town who helped to raise me. Of course, my family members, but it definitely took a community. I grew up in the projects of my small town until I was about 10 years old before moving to a little bit better part of town. But all the people that I've interacted with through my life are the reason why I've been able to do all the things I've been able to do, from go to college and get a basketball scholarship to eventually becoming a Globetrotter and meeting a lot of the people that you mentioned, as well as being on a lot of television shows that you mentioned. And all the things that I've learned are just a display of the lessons I was taught along the way.
That's awesome.
So did you, like, when you were a kid, were you like, I want to be a Globetrotter? Like, how does that even happen?
When I was growing up, actually, my first love was football. I loved football. I fell in love with football first. I was a Chicago Bears fan. Somehow I fell in love with Walter Payton, and I couldn't wait to get into seventh grade and, run touchdowns like Walter Payton did. So, football was my first love because I was really small. I was small and I was fast. So, like in seventh grade, I was 5'2", and it's funny because my best friend, he was 5'10" and already dunking in basketball. So I'm thinking I have a better chance in football than basketball. But eventually it worked itself out. I grew to the height that I am now. My senior year, I grew from 5'9" till about 6'3", which shifted me from football mainly to basketball at that point.
Yeah. Well, and I was actually watching one of your speeches earlier, and you tell a really funny story. And I don't remember what grade you were in, but the teacher had you guys try to figure out what you wanted to be when you grow up. And there was a bunch of folders, and every week she'd go around asking the class. And so why don't you talk a little bit about that? Because it's such a cool story to actually now, having seen the results, and kind of how it drove you to success.
Well, many times in life, a lot of times people will encourage you, but there's also people who try to bring you down. And I feel like the people who try to bring you down or tell you what you can't do, sometimes they're looking out for you, but a lot of times it's because of some of the failures that they've had in their lives. So, for example, as you mentioned, that teacher at career orientation, she would come around and, ask us what we wanted to be. And, I look in the folder and the professional athlete wasn't anywhere in there. So upon that storytelling, she told me that I probably would be better off if I choose something else because I had a better chance of becoming something else other than a professional athlete. But luckily, I remained determined, and all the people who helped me along the way made it possible for me to become that professional athlete and reach that impossible dream.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's always interesting because something like that, especially when you're younger, could be devastating. And it could, make someone, especially a kid, just kind of shut down and go, well, this is all I can do.
It's totally understandable. I see where she's coming
Oh
from. As a
yeah,
teacher,
Oh yeah.
you have to tell kids, you're not going to become a professional athlete because statistically, it's not going to be possible. But
right.
you also get to choose something else to fall back on. For me, it was my high school basketball coach. He was one of the biggest influences in my life. He was a health and physical education teacher. He was the person who molded me and motivated me and showed me that I could go to college and become something that people said that I couldn't become. And as a result, I give him all the credit, and I'm so grateful that he's still a part of my life today. And I know he's proud every time he sees me, doing something. And no matter what happens, his legacy gets to live through me.
Right. And so, why don't you talk a little bit about going from college and kind of your journey from college basketball into, joining the Globetrotters?
Yeah. So my junior year in college, I was leading conference scorer. I had 19.6 points a game. Going into the conference the next year, I was preseason player of the year and projected to be the top NBA prospect in our conference. My coach for my first 3 years ended up getting fired. I had a new coach came in who was Coach Billy Kennedy, a great coach. I had a decent senior year, not as good as my junior year, but I did have an opportunity to compete in the 1998 Slam Dunk Contest, which I was able to win. During that time, there was no opportunity to go to NBA training camps because of the lockout that year. So I decided that Centenary was going to pay for my final semester. So I decided to not go overseas and play basketball, but go and finish up my education. So I did my student teaching at Southwood High School in Shreveport, Louisiana. And after finishing up that, I ended up working a job as a personal trainer for 10 years. But at the same time, I still missed the game of basketball. I was only 22 years old, and I knew I had, plenty of more to offer the game. And in between that time, a friend, I went to try the game, and he put it in my head. He gave me the vision, and he said that he felt that I could do everything that they could do. And 18 years later, I guess he was absolutely correct. I did 18 years, and it's been 3 years since I retired, and I'm grateful for the opportunity I had to hold that spot for 18 years.
Yeah. And it's always interesting to me the conversation of like where you talk about how the lockout just shifted and changed opportunities and the resilience that was required for that. I mean, a lot of athletes this year, past year, and it looks like it's going into next year, are going to have that same, what do I do? What with my pivot? I have this big decision to make. Do you have any advice or anything along those lines, especially because it seems like a lot of people these days are having to pivot because a lot of things beyond your control are changing something that would have been a different opportunity?
I mean, I would just say you have to continue to work hard. A lot of the things that are happening right now are not even in the control of these student athletes or even some of the people who are running the universities. But at the end of the day, you just have to continue to work hard and just understand that the process that you're going through is exactly the process that was meant for you. And at the end of the day, you'll end up exactly where you're supposed to. If you're kind to people, you do exactly what you're supposed to do, work hard, you have no worries.
Well, and it's funny, I was thinking about it this morning. We met you because of COVID. Like,
Yes.
had COVID
Yes.
not
Yeah.
happened and people not needing to figure out new ways to, do conferences, and shout out to Brian Wallace, who is actually the one that introduced
Yeah,
us.
Mr. Super Connector.
But I was just thinking about this morning. I'm like, had COVID not happened, we never would have met you. And like, we've gotten to know you pretty well over the past few months. And, it's funny how what looks like a tragedy or something bad in your life, like a door shuts, leads to other opportunities. So, and I know you've talked about it with, leaving the Globetrotters, and I think a lot of professional athletes kind of deal with this as they go from the peak performance that they've achieved to now being, regular part of the population.
Yeah, I mean, this is certainly a tough time, and as you mentioned, I mean, for me, shifting to not being a Globetrotter anymore was a tough shift, and a lot of people are in situations now where they don't really know what's coming next or what's coming around. But one of the things that happened for me during this COVID was connection, like you guys mentioned. I jumped on every Zoom call, every conference, every school that wanted me to come on and say something. I tried to make sure that I did that, and I also connected with my kids, through video games, through the TikToks. I built up my LinkedIn page to superstar status to where people actually want to hear, what I have to say. And I just encourage people that, and there's still people sitting at home not really working.
Yeah.
If you have something that you've been really, really wanting to do, go ahead and take time to investigate. Look at the person who you're looking up to, the people that you're following on social media. Figure out what they did to get to that point. Don't just sit there and look back and wish that you would have done things different. This is the time. You have time now to make whatever your dream, is or was come true. A lot of times we get into our 30s and our 40s, and we forget that we still get to dream, we still get
Yeah.
to create. And that's one thing that I realized. I ended up having to retire at 40 years old, but I still get to dream. I get to go to the next part of my life, and I get to use all that knowledge and information, all the connections that I met along the way to help make the world a better place. And that's what it's all about. And that's probably one of the best things that the Globetrotters did for me. They showed me the world, and now learned that I get to make the world a better place from my experiences.
Well, and you're still in contact with some of the players and former players, right?
Yes, for sure. One of the great things also that happened was I created I'll tell you this. I created a Facebook page about a year ago. We started out. It was a Facebook alumni group. For anybody who had ever worked for the Globetrotters, you're welcome to be a part of this group. And I only had like 60 people in the group, but as soon as COVID happened, I mean, within 2 weeks, we had over 200 people in our Facebook group, and we started to do twice a week Zoom calls with my former teammates, which we still do to this day. And it's just allowed us to really connect, and it's been a sense of relief, because what I explain to a lot of people is when you play 5, 10 years on the road, and you're on the road 8, 10 months out of a year, you're with guys who know you better than your family knows you.
Yeah.
You know, and over time you tend to lose connection. And what this has done, this allowed us to reconnect, and I think that it's probably made relationships better at home with wives and kids, having a place to come and vent and remember the times when you were young, but at the same time also get to talk about now what we get to do moving forward as a result of the things that we learned.
Right.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the things you learned. Like when you first started playing, I mean, the Harlem Globetrotters aren't just playing ball. There's a performance to it. You got to be on camera. Like when you started that, were you a natural, or did you have to kind of learn how the ropes?
No way. When I first joined the Globetrotters, I couldn't even spin the basketball on my finger. I just remember being at the training camp and being amazed and wild. But at the same time, I also remember working that job, making $7 an hour as a personal trainer. And so I knew I wanted to keep a job that I really enjoyed a little bit more, that could also bring, a lot of happiness to people. So it's just funny how things end up working out.
Well, and so did they do any sort of like formal marketing training or speaker training or anything like that? Or is it just something that you kind of picked up along the way?
One of the things about being a Globetrotter is that it's more than just about the game of basketball. If you're going to become a Globetrotter, you can't play forever. So the more things that you can do as far as speaking, your willingness to get out into, front of the community, your willingness to learn the ball handling tricks, because even though I may not have been able to jump for 18 years, I can still handle the basketball to this day, and that's something that extends my career. And one of the things that I'm so grateful of at training camp is that they would bring us people in to teach us how to speak to the media. We would have media training, and that allowed me to lose my shyness when I first joined. I went from not really speaking in front of large audiences to now, I can speak in front of any group with confidence and conviction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any tips that you like that made a light bulb go off and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so simple, like that helped you be able to have that confidence?
I'd say it probably came from a public speaking class that I took back in college. It talked about how you get to control the audience. And one of the things that I remember is I remember being more nervous speaking in front of my family members than a large group. And so what I learned from the Globetrotters is that it didn't matter. I could just treat that my family like as if they were, not the audience, even though they can be some of the most, critical people when you get to speaking. But the Globetrotters, being able to go in different parts of the world, even, and having to, learn a few words in different languages. I mean, just so many amazing things that came from that job and that opportunity. And even going to the games today, I look down at some of the younger guys on the court, first year, second year, and I remember the things that I experienced, and it's just pretty exciting knowing that they get to live that same dream and follow that same path that I was able to, open the door for, as well as the guys Curly Neal, Meadowlark, Lemon, and the other legendary Globetrotters that people remember done. And hopefully these guys will do the same thing, and the Globetrotters will be around for another 100 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Curly Neal and Meadowlark, and those guys, those are the guys I grew up with. So I remember,
Hey, Curly Neal would say to you, "Thanks for the memories."
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Curly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're also the only person that has the distinction of ever spinning a basketball on the Pope's finger. Can you?
That is true. That is something that I really realized and took onus to several months ago, I started to talk about it and I started to think about it. Uh, I think it was 2015, our president at the time, Kirk Snyder, he had us all in Rome, and I was the person that was going to be designated to spin the ball on the Pope's finger. And let me tell you, that was probably the most nerve-wracking news I have ever received during my Globetrotter career. And I remember the night before just not being able to sleep. And we got to the Vatican super early. We were the first people through the gate, sitting right on the front row, knowing that we're going to meet the Pope, and me knowing that I'm going to be the person to spin the basketball on his finger. Now, I know that there are going to be a lot of cameras there, so my main worry was that if I spin the basketball on his finger and it hits him in the head, spins off, then I'll be going viral for the wrong reasons, and that's not something that that I wanted to be known for. But it was an amazing experience, and that's something that I never would have even imagined or dreamed of if I wouldn't have had a chance to play for the Globetrotters. Popes, presidents, just like my book says, and I mean, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love like your storytelling ability. And like you are like a super charismatic, super like engaging speaker, and I always just love when we jump on a call just to hear some of the stories that you have. And you say that, yeah, I met Obama, or actually he met me. And like
the great selfie story. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I just like to think, I just want people to know that at the end of the day we're all human, and we tend to put people on pedestals and not realize that at the end of the day we truly are human. We wake up, we have issues. We may not financially have the same circumstances, but we deal with a lot of the same issues, the same sicknesses, the same, just everything. And all the people that I've met, and people ask me, what famous people have you met? What famous people? And I do brag that I met the president and I met the Pope. Have you met LeBron? Yeah, LeBron met me too. Maybe he remembers, maybe he doesn't. But I just wish that people would really, really, really put more value to themselves and realize how important they are, and not put so much value into people that they see on television, because you're just as capable of doing what you see another person doing. And I tell people that with anything, with all my extracurricular activities that I do, I'm, scuba certified, I'm skiing, I'm, wakeboarding. I feel like I can do anything that any man can do. And if I can't, God put somebody on here who can. And I think that everybody should have that mentality. It's not about being arrogant or cocky. It's just about having confidence in yourself and realizing that you're capable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and one of the things that comes through in a lot of your stories is that aspect of kindness. Like when you do talk about some of the famous people you've met, there's always an aspect to it of the people who you find out they really are good people. And there's this mentorship that happens, or there's a, hey, you know what? When I met Shaquille O'Neal, he's a cool guy because he probably doesn't remember you, but you're totally convinced he does, or things like that. I mean, I've read stuff about how to be charming and stuff. That's really interesting. That whole wave of kindness that you've picked up on and are definitely amplifying.
Yeah, I mean, my motto before I decided kindness was free was always patience and kindness. I always felt like no matter what happened in my life, as long as I do things the right way, I treat people the right way and remain patient, that my kindness would pay off at the end. And it was early this year that I realized kindness doesn't cost us anything. A lot of times we hold on to a simple smile or a hello, and it doesn't cost us anything. And just for me, when I speak to people and they're randomly surprised just to see the smile on their face or to see them wave, knowing that that didn't cost me anything, that is the essence of kindness is free. You may not have all the money in the world, but you'll never run out of kindness. And as much as you give it away, the more it'll come back to you. And the feeling that I get when I see people smile is worth more than any amount of money that I could ever make or anything that I could ever have. So people just remember, kindness is free. It doesn't cost you nothing. It doesn't cost you a dime. Just give it away.
Right.
That's awesome.
Well, and I that really starts to come through in your book as well. So I'd love to talk a little bit about your book and your journey, because I know when we talked prior, you're like, I had no idea that I would ever be an author. And so I think for a lot of us that have written books, especially, me, like never in a million years thought I'd ever write a book. And so like, can you talk a little bit about that process and a little bit about what, you're trying to convey through your book?
Well, I certainly never thought that I would become an author or a person who even writes articles, but I had a good education growing up. I graduated top of my class. I was president of my high school class. And I had really good teachers who had a lot of confidence in me. And I give all the credit in the world to them because they instilled in me that I could do these things. And writing a book wasn't the easiest thing for me, but it wasn't the hardest thing. We have so many tools right now on the internet, Google, YouTube. You can learn how to write a book. The hardest part is actually getting started. And one of the best things that happened with me through writing this book, especially after my Globetrotter career ended, is that it was tough. I was having a hard time moving forward. And what this book did for me was allow me to reflect back and face some moments in my life earlier that I may not have faced. And I was able to move past some things. And now I was able to realize that through my book, I get to share stories and circumstances with people who may be going through something similar. And I know that, if they can take something from a lesson that I've learned in my book, then that's what it's all about. Even with young people, the things that happen to me, not to be discouraged. Look at every situation or every obstacle that you may face as an opportunity to do something great. And that's the way I look at things. I always try to find the silver lining in whatever happens in my life, and I'll always be like that.
Well, and I think a lot of people just don't ever think that they have a story in them. And, they just kind of get in their own head and they're like, yeah, I'm not that interesting. And once you document it and once you put it down in writing, there's this weird thing that happens. And all of a sudden, all these opportunities open up and speaking engagements happen and people ask you to be on your podcast. And, there's all kinds of incredible things that happen once you start putting your voice out there and sharing your perspective with the world. And I think, kudos to you for taking that leap and actually doing it, because I think there's so many of us, myself included up until recently, that are afraid or intimidated. What if someone, makes fun of it or doesn't think it's that interesting? And I mean, I think you're a great testimony to the power of doing that.
You just have to put your mind to it. Writing the book, I think, has definitely been one of the most powerful things I've done in my life. It, like you said, it's opened up so many doors for me. I probably would not have met Brian, who connected us, if I hadn't written my book. If I hadn't updated my LinkedIn page, I wouldn't have had an opportunity to talk about my book and then have an opportunity to write in other books. This is a book that's coming out here in the next week or so, maybe the next 1 or 2 weeks. And this is just a testament to actually taking committed action and making something happen, that people will reach out to you to contribute to a book like this, Cracking the Rich Code by Jim Britt, with the foreword by Kevin Harrington, as well as Tony Robbins. So anything can happen. Everybody's story is unique and it's different, and you never know who you can inspire. So if you're having a hard time right now and you're just like stuck, just clear your head. Just take the time. Actually, take the time to make it happen. Do the research. Reach out to people who've actually done it. Reach out to me. Ask me the process. I'll be happy to try to explain it to you the best way that I can, because definitely when it comes to book in the beginning, I wasn't the most, the smartest person with the process, but I've definitely become better as a result. And even with this book, I was only able to contribute a chapter, but what it did was give me an outline for my next book.
Yeah, it's funny how that works, because like when we wrote our full book, it was based on a longer article that we had done. And once we had that, we're like, well, this is basically an outline for a book, so why not do it? And, I think it's just one of those things where, again, we all get in our heads, we don't think that we can actually do it. And once you take that step, it's incredible.
And it feels amazing.
It does.
It feels a sense of accomplishment, once you put it on paper and it comes in the mail and you see it on Amazon, you see it. I still can't believe it. I have 2 books right here that I've contributed to, and now I know that I get to do more, because if the first book wasn't any good, then I wouldn't have this opportunity. So I get to continue to share with the world and just be an inspiration and do my part to make this world a better place while I'm here.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and so you're the first person who's ever, I guess only person who's spun a basketball on the Pope's finger. You've had this amazing experience with the Globetrotters. And then, that chapter comes to an end. Some people would have said, that's pretty good. I'm good. What is it that's fueling you now to kind of to create your own, take this and say, I'm going to make the story even more about, kindness is free and basically the Herbling brand?
As a former professional athlete, a lot of us, we tend to try to live now vicariously through our kids, even non-professional athletes. But I'm the kind of person that, okay, I had a great 18-year career with the Globetrotters. I was able to do a lot of things. I have kids that are 14 and 13. My son, he's athletic and playing every sport. My daughter, she's entertaining, she's singing, she's dancing. I can't just say, oh, look at what I did and do what I did. I want to show you that I'm still doing things
Mm-hmm.
beyond that. I want you to do great, but I still get to dream. I get to show you what I'm doing instead of putting all the pressure on you to be like me. So I just I just really would like to take this moment to encourage parents to step aside from what you think that your kids are supposed to be and realize that the life that you have planned for them may not be the life that's meant for them, and figure out what they're really into and support them in those aspects. If you're an athlete and your son's not into sports, figure out what he's into. If you're
Mm-hmm.
a singer and your daughter, she's not into singing, figure out what she's into. I mean, if you're a school teacher and your daughter doesn't really love to go to, just take time to get interested and remember what it was like for you to be a kid.
Right.
Remember what it was like for you to be a
Mm-hmm.
kid and the dreams that you had and how they lined up with what your parents thought. And if you can take a second and realize that it probably didn't exactly line up, then it'll give you an opportunity to sit back and understand that you need to listen to the kids and figure out which direction what they want to go and support them in that.
Yeah. And
It'll
so,
make the relationships better and everything.
well,
Oh,
and
for
I
sure.
and I think that's a really important point. And I think you do a lot of speaking, or at least you had up until recently,
Right.
as we all did.
Yeah.
Speaking to kids and talking about your dreams and making sure that you continue to kind of block the negativity and keep the positive and keep driving forward.
You have to surround yourself with people who are trying to do great things. And that was one of the good things about my friends in high school. There was about 7 of us that we knew that we wanted to be bigger than just some guys walking around our hometown on the streets doing nothing. And as a result of that, we not only competed in the classroom, we competed in sports and the classroom. And 3 of us ended up getting basketball scholarships. 3 guys had football scholarships out of about 60 people in the class. We all graduated with honors. And that's just the testimony of surrounding yourself with people who
Mm-hmm.
are like-minded with common goals. And that's what's going to happen for you. If you're hanging around people who are nagging and complaining all day, that's what you're going to feed into.
Yeah.
If you're hanging around people who are talking about changing the world, being successful, how to make money, how to progress, then that's what you're going to do. You're going to be thinking in that same format. So if I hear people around me speaking negative, I'm either going to change the conversation or walk away immediately. And I've learned to be able to do that. And I think that's something that we all get to practice and get better in.
Yeah. One of the things that Susan always says is it's amazing what you can achieve when you don't know that you're not supposed to do it. And so, like,
Yeah.
the idea
I like
of having like a strong five, I think,
Yeah.
as entrepreneurs, as really just, humans, we really do need that strong support network, whether it's friends, colleagues, mentors, or whatever, to really help us get out of our own heads. Because, I mean, if you look at what's going on in the world right now, there's a lot of negativity out there, but there's also a lot of really good things that are happening. A lot of people that are trying to make change in a very
Yeah.
positive way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for what's happening right now. I feel like the young people, have really stepped up and said that we're not going to live in the world that you created for us. We're going to live in our world, and it doesn't look exactly the way yours
Mm-hmm.
looked. And hey, I'm ready to move with them. And one of my other things is that if you don't figure out what's going on in this world and figure out how to vibe with this new generation, then we'll become extinct. And they'll be talking historically about us older people and how fast we went away. But you just have to adapt. Times change. We can't always be stuck in whatever we call the good old days.
Right.
The
Mm-hmm.
good old days are today. Make today the good old days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, there's always this rivalry between generations, and I mean, I don't really get it because there's so much knowledge that we have that we can share, and my belief is, like, if we can do that, then we're not having that generation make the same mistakes we made. And so whether it's business or school or
Yeah.
just life in general, it seems like there's this rivalry between generations, and it's us versus them, and we just don't want them to succeed, or these slacking kids, which was always said about Generation X. But, like, there's so much knowledge that you gain as you get older and as you live your life, that if we could just stop for a second and actually share that knowledge, and hopefully instead of starting over, we can start from kind of that middle tier, and then the next generation can start from that middle tier and actually go up a little bit more, and generation over generation we continue to move things forward.
Scott, one of the things about evolving over time is it's like the athlete. People ask who's the greatest athlete of all time, greatest basketball player of all time. My age, people are going to say Michael Jordan. If you were born in the 80s, those kids are going to say Kobe Bryant. If you were born in the 2000s, these kids are going to say LeBron James. As a former dunk champion in 1998, I won the college dunk contest. Pretty good athlete. 2 years later, I watched that same dunk contest, college dunk contest. I see guys going between their legs, 360s, and I'm thinking, this is a different athlete that's coming. He's bigger, he's faster, he's stronger. And that's something that I also noticed as a Globetrotter. Every 4 years, we would get a different type of athlete, a different type of person. And that's not a bad thing. You have to be able to adapt and realize you can argue, but you can't definitively say that Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James. I can say that LeBron James is bigger, faster, and stronger than Michael Jordan was back then. I can say that definitively.
Right. I didn't know we were going to have this kind of controversy on here today, quite frankly.
You weren't prepared for this?
Yeah, whoa.
But yeah, like you're saying, it's the generations competing against each other. Everybody wants to say, back in my day, we did it this way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that was the right way. Yeah. We have to be able to work together and evolve, and that's what it's going to take for us to get out of the times that we're in right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, and so you, like I said, you did a lot of public speaking to children. You also talk a lot to businesses and executives, and you are an inspirational leader, quite frankly, when it comes to that type of stuff. So talk a little bit about when a business brings you in, like what types of things they're hoping that you can help with. Is it team building? Is it just inspiring the employees to level up? Like what are they generally looking for?
Well, I mean, it would be definitely team building. That's something that I learned again with the Globetrotters. We would be able to go to these different conferences and events and just change the way people think, inspire them. Because when you're a Globetrotter, it's all about teamwork, and when you're working a job, it's about teamwork. And one of my things as a former coach of the Globetrotters and as a former player, when I talk to people who are running businesses, I'm a kind of person that I'm not ever going to ask a person to do anything that I wouldn't also do myself. So if I am running my business and I'm out here, giving people orders, I'm going to show you that I'm willing to also do some of those same things. I'm not above doing that. And I think that people tend to respect that. And so, I mean, that's what it's all about at the end of the day. If you can get people in an environment that's conducive and happy, then they're going to do more work for you. And it doesn't mean you have to keep them there all day. You can have somebody there for 4 hours instead of 8 hours and get the same amount of work done. And I think this is another thing that we're learning today is that people are realizing that sitting in that office for 8 hours a day and then sitting another 2 hours in traffic, I can probably get all this work done at home in 4 hours and have 6 hours to enjoy the rest of my day with my family and my kids.
Right.
But that's not one of the things that the people would bring me in to talk about.
I mean, but it's a really important conversation that I think has started. You certainly see the data that shows that employees are more productive, there's that word, when they're working from home because they don't have the commute, they don't have the stress of trying to run out the door and, whatever. And so I do think one of the big benefits, if you can call it a benefit of COVID, because there's really nothing good about it, is that it's forcing us to relearn how we work, how we play, the relationships that we have with our families as well.
And even with that, Scott, I mean, with that extra amount of time, we can become healthier. People are out walking and exercising more. I mean, I walk every day, and this time last year, there's people out walking, but not as many. I mean, even though it's COVID, there's people covered up, but there's people out actually walking and being active because they're not spending as much time in those cars. Right. And so that's a good thing. We're creating a healthier world if we're able to take a little bit more time away from working these 9 to 5s and taking more time for ourselves and enjoy this beautiful world that God created for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I will even say in our neighborhood, we laughed really hard about that first few weeks where you'd see the dogs in the neighborhood like, why am I on a walk again? Like, what's going on? And now it's like, it's constantly that we have families that are walking around and probably spending more time with each other in that type of a fun environment as opposed to that forced, shelter in place of where they're actually having communications and getting to know each other.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, This COVID has not been the greatest thing in the world. For sure, it's been one of the worst things in my life, and hopefully we'll never
Mm-hmm.
have to go through anything like it again. But I just hope that we can all just take a step back and realize that there's a reason why this is happening. This year, 2020, has been what I call a learning season. From the beginning of the year with the loss of Kobe Bryant to, going through this COVID to the kneeling on the neck. This is a time for us to learn. With the election coming up, it's just a time for us to reach back and figure out what we all get to do to move forward and make this world a better place. We all get on the same page and realize that it's not our world at the end of the day. We get to do our
Mm-hmm.
part for the short time that we're here,
Right.
and just put your head down, move forward, come together, and try to live the best life you can while you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I want to change gears a little bit. So I know you recently got your patent for Swag Ball.
Yeah.
And so Swag Ball is your personal, like your athletic brand. So why don't you talk a little bit about Swag
Yeah.
Ball and really what you're trying to do with that?
Well, Swag Ball, this is my brand right here, Swag Ball. It's a brand not directly related to sports. I'm going to hold events. I'm going to have merchandise. But at the end of the day, it's about being kind. Swag Ball is about kind swag, being good to people. It's about bringing people together and doing it with swag, doing it, being cool, having fun in sports. When I'm hosting basketball clinics, I'm promoting fun. I'm promoting, swag. That's what all the kids are talking
Mm-hmm.
about today. So that's why I decided to trademark swag. And when we have Swag Ball, we'll be having T-shirts with kindness is free. We'll be having, 2020 Swag Ball T-shirts. But Swag Ball is just a brand that I created as a result of my experiences with the Globetrotters. The Globetrotters are a brand, and I realized that at the end of the day, when I left that brand, I didn't really have anything that was my own.
Yep.
And I'm so grateful
Mm-hmm.
for them that they taught me that I can be a brand. And I have a brand that I can put on anything. I have a brand that I can hold events to. I have a brand that young people can be proud of, and it's a brand that came through COVID. It shows that you can create something through a pandemic. It shows that you don't have to just try to get through the pandemic, but you get to come out on the other side on top.
Right.
And that's what this has been all about. It's not been an easy process, but it's a process that's been worth it. Kind of like writing a book. It's something that I knew that I could do. And if I put
Mm-hmm.
my mind to it, I'm going to do it. And I think that anybody else can, just like I did.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've recently, I think, broken ground down in Florida on a new home, right?
Yeah, that's right. My
Mm-hmm.
girlfriend and I, we just broke ground a couple of days ago on our Florida home. Hopefully, we'll be down there by the end of the year. And it's just a testament to anything is possible. We have a nice lakefront property down there where I hope to have some basketball clinics and bring kids as well as adults in at some point, maybe be doing some dual clinics at my home and just teach people a different way of life. I came from the projects of Brinkley, Arkansas. My mom had me at 17 years old. She had six of us by the time she was 25 years old. And the life that I'm living right now probably wasn't supposed to be possible, but by determination and the help of all the people along the
Mm-hmm.
way, I'm able to, have a home here, have a home in Louisiana, and now build a home in Florida with my girlfriend. And I know a lot of lives are going to be changed down there. And that was one of the main purposes of me building it, was to be able to show people a different way, a brighter way, and show you that anything is possible.
Yeah, and I love what you're doing, quite honestly, because it's helping kids, it's helping adults.
Yeah.
Like you're helping professional athletes transition. You're really just like Mr. Kindness is like
Yeah.
I think like I think flight time needs to be like Mr. Kindness because that's
Yeah.
really like that's what I'm most struck by
Well,
when I
Scott
talk.
and Susan, I say for me, my main shift was after my Globetrotter career ended. I was really focused on like, I got to show people, I got to show them and prove them wrong, and it was all about me. Once I was able to shift and make it about other people and realize that it's bigger than me, that's when all these great things started to happen. That's when the book came. That's when Swag Ball came. That's when the ground broke on the house.
Mm-hmm.
When I started to include other people in my vision, all the things that I've seen in my life, I've been able to show a lot of people through my videos, like my family members. But my next vision is I want to be able to physically take them to some of the places that I've been to and show them that it's real and it's possible.
Right.
And so once you remove yourself from the situation and make it about other people, I think that's when your biggest blessings come through.
Absolutely. So, we know due to COVID, there's a lot of folks that find themselves out of work right now. And you kind of alluded to it a little bit, before, where this is your opportunity to investigate and, learn some new things and see what you might be into and, maybe consider a career pivot or whatever. Being someone that went from, quite frankly, one of the pinnacles in professional sports to transitioning to kind of this new life that you're creating, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who either finds themselves recently out of a job or maybe for the past few months? Like, what would you recommend that they start to do right now if they wanted to take this next step?
I would say, first of all, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to talk. Don't be afraid to talk about it. And start to connect. I'd say connect on LinkedIn first. I mean, for me, if you're a business person and you're really trying to advance, I think that is the way to go. I mean, also there's, of course, advertising on those other social media places like Instagram and Facebook. But for me, if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to build a business, go ahead and build up your Facebook, your LinkedIn profile. Make as many connections as you want. Put some time and money into that. A lot of times we spend money on, drinks and fancy jewelry and cars, but we don't invest in ourselves. And LinkedIn and this social media, some of this stuff is free, but also you have to pay for a little bit of it. And that's what happened as a result of me over this COVID break. I invested in my LinkedIn. I went ahead and upgraded my LinkedIn so I could have access to people that I typically wouldn't have access to. But this is a great time for you to transition if you're not already. A lot of us probably have an extra 4 or 5 hours a day. A lot of us probably have a lot of extra 8 hours a day. But make that time useful and don't be afraid. Figure out what you want to do. Surround yourself with people who are trying to do that same thing and just work. Put your head down. Be kind, and it'll work out in the end.
Yeah.
Do it with love and kindness.
That's great advice.
That is. So with all of these projects, how are you prioritizing? How are you navigating that balance? Because there's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know. Hey, I think that I'm just built to do it. There was a lot of time where I was just focused on one thing, and that's what I did during the Globetrotters for 18 years. That was the one thing that I focused on. And when it was all over with, I didn't really have anything. I didn't have a second income. And once that happened, I realized that I had to shift. I had to be able to do more than one thing at a time. And that's why I'm doing multiple things with the book, with the house, with the brand, with the speaking. I'm capable of doing it. And if I wasn't able to do it, then God wouldn't put it up on me.
Yeah. And you're keeping it though again, there's always kindness in the middle of it, which is really admirable of, there's so many times there's a temptation to try to be everything to everyone, but it's sort of, you can always tell between the events and the house and swag ball, it's all coming back to this whole idea of kindness, and developing that and staying holding on to that. So that way, then you can say occasionally, no, I can't do that. Although I don't feel like you would ever, I feel like you'd make everything work.
I mean, it's getting a little bit harder. I'm having to say no to some things. In the beginning, I was just so excited to be having so many opportunities where I was just pretty much taking on more than I could. But I've had to really prioritize and realize that I have to be able to make time for my family as well and those that are close to me. But again, at the end of the day, it's bigger than me. It's about the world. It's about making this world a better place. I've seen the world. I've traveled to almost 90 different countries, and I know that I get to figure out a way to make the world a better place. That's my mission, my purpose that I realized in this latter half of my life. And I'm putting my head down and I'm moving forward. And I know you guys are moving forward with me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been great. So if someone wants to bring you in to speak or is interested in learning more about you, your story, how would they go about doing that?
Well, you can find me on all the social media. You can find me on herblang.com. That's my website. On Twitter and Instagram, I am at the @ DA Trotter 4. That's at DA Trotter 4. Herbert S. Lang on Facebook. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on TikTok dancing with my daughter. So I'm not that hard to find. I would give you my phone number, but I'm sure you can find it on my website.
Awesome.
Well, Herb.
And I also want to say before I go, Scott, and Susan, before you guys get me out here, is that kindness is free. It doesn't cost you a dime, guys. Give it away with abundance, knowing that you'll never run out of it.
Absolutely.
Kindness is free. It doesn't cost you a dime.
Absolutely. And I think that's the perfect statement to end on.
Yeah.
Well, Herb, thank you so much for coming on. This has been a great conversation, and I think we covered a lot of different areas that I think a lot of people will get a lot of in.
Oh.
You know what? I want to go full screen.
Full screen.
Wrong way. Hold on.
Full.
There we go.
Oh, look at him. Yeah.
I'm telling you, all your LinkedIn videos should be you spinning a basketball and talking to camera.
Oh.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Well, Herb, again, thank you so much for joining us. This has been incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Looking forward to talking again. I know we'll be talking again in a few days.
Absolutely.
You know it.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Bye.
Well, and that's another episode of Pragmatic Talk. Join us again soon for our next episode where we'll be talking about marketing tips, technology, and probably spread in a little bit of kindness as well. So hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll be talking to you soon.